Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is Kid Nate of BloodyElbow.com, joined for the first time by Victor Rodriguez. It's kind of like Chris Carriazo getting a title shot. Who the fuck is this guy? That's what you're thinking. Victor, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Good evening, and thanks for having me on, boss. It's a pleasure to do this, and we're here to talk some fisticuffs. Let's get this going.
All right, all right. So you've done like 2 vivisections with Zane on like a World Series of Fighting and a Bellator, and here you are at what shoulda, coulda, woulda been the biggest UFC of the year. Instead, it was just an awesome card with the flyweight main event, but an awesome card. General thoughts on the card, your take.
Okay, well, first off, you're forgetting the Invicta one. That was also fun. But, yeah, as far as the card overall, it was fantastic. This was there was a lot of action. There were some lulls, not every fight was gold, not all of them were winners, but there was a lot of great stuff going on. A lot of weirdness too. There was a lot of odd moments. Starting off with the first fight with Manny Gamburian. Not really sure where he's coming out of that. Is he going to probably be cut? How did he look at bantamweight? What
He
went
looked like
wrong?
shit at the beginning, and then suddenly, boom! He eats a nut shot, comes back and gets a guillotine choke. Just amazing comeback. But yeah, it was a totally weird fight. But hats off to Manny. Cody Gibson looked great though, and just made a mistake against a very dangerous opponent. But I think he'll be back. And then the Kevin Lee, and that was the Manny Gamburian one, second round, 4 minutes 51 seconds with a guillotine choke. And then Kevin Lee and John Tuck, lightweight fight. It was a good scrap, but nothing to really write home about. 3 rounds. But the most interesting thing of that was there were so many nut shots that the referee took away a point, and it was some bad reffing. There was a bad stand up, but who cares? Then the welterweight Brian Ebersol versus John Howard, split decision. Fight sucked. I'm not even going to ask you to comment on that one. But talk about Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Patrick Cote. Thoughts on that one?
That was a bit odd as well because, you had a lot of resilience on behalf of Patrick Cote. He brought forth a lot of heart, but, man, he was just eating shots with his face. He was landing some hits that did seem more significant than some of the shots that Wonderboy was landing, but in the end, really, it didn't stylistically make for a very exciting matchup.
Not at all. I mean, Cote was landing those leg kicks early, and it seemed like that was working, and that would work against a guy like Stephen Thompson, whose whole game is his front leg. But Cote, for some reason, I guess because he was eating counters when he was kicking the leg, he was getting punched in the face, and so he quit doing it. But so pretty good performance from Stephen Thompson. Unanimous decision, 29-28 on 2 cards, 30-27 on the other. That brings us to George Gamebred Masvidal and James Krause. I got some shit for complaining about the first round on that one, and I think I was complaining mostly because after Ebersol Howard and after Thompson Cote, I just was not in the mood to see more technical striking. And so, but a good performance by Gamebred. But what are your thoughts on that fight?
Well, that was a little sad to watch in certain parts because Krause, despite all his efforts, really didn't seem to have much to offer against Masvidal, who pretty much was outclassing him on the feet. He was hitting counters. He was pretty much working from the distance, getting inside. And once the fight hit the ground, he was pretty much doing not whatever he wanted, but he was doing really, really well. And Krause didn't seem to have an answer for any of it.
No, Krause was clearly outclassed, and I don't think that's a big surprise. But now Masvidal's reeled off 3 straight wins. But the last time, Masvidal's one of these guys who looks like not a world beater because he doesn't get the dramatic finish, but he's very dominant. But then when he fights somebody like Gilbert Melendez or Rustam Kabalov, it's like you realize, oh, this guy's not at that top tier. So I would be curious to see, what they do with him next. But then Dominick Cruz, Takeya Mizugaki. I've been the biggest Dominick Cruz hater out there for years. I have to say, I take it all back. Dominick Cruz, a minute 1 is all it took. Devastating, and it should have been stopped at like 56 seconds because there was a full 7 seconds of unnecessary beating. Thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, listen, I sometimes think that when a referee like that lets something happen as far and as long as that went down, I mean, I know I shouldn't, as I posted earlier, I know I shouldn't think like this, but you kind of think, maybe this guy should get punched in the head a couple of times, so he can realize that maybe that's not a safe thing to do. He shouldn't have let the fight go as it did. This whole performance after such a long absence and after all the injuries and all the mishaps that Cruz had gone through, I think he very well should be in position for a title shot. I mean, the guy never lost the belt to begin with. He comes back. The biggest knock on him was, well, he's kind of boring. He's technical, but he's not that exciting, and he doesn't finish. And then he comes in and he blows the doors off of Mizugaki. It was, 5-win streak so far. He did exactly what he needed to do to put a stamp on it and get back into title contention, and I don't see why that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense from a money standpoint. The only reason I could see not giving Cruz an immediate title shot would be to give him another fight with Uriah Faber. But honestly, why fuck with that? Let's get Cruz in there, get a title shot, and then you can have a Cruz Faber fight and make it for the title. So excited to see him back, and very excited to see him winning like that. But then let's go on to the main card. Cat and Zingano and Amanda Nunes. Damn, that was a good fight. Just all the brutality you want to see two women suffer. Cat Zingano, though, a slow starter, is that going to disqualify her against Ronda Rousey? Like, you will not get the chance to fuck around for an entire round like that against Ronda Rousey.
I think it depends on what kind of adversity she's facing. Against Ronda, I don't know, Ronda's striking is really a lot more polished, and Cat seemed more content to sort of wing a little more from the distance, just use her striking to get inside, work the clinch, and start, hitting the short elbows, takedowns, and everything else, because she really wasn't going to, especially against someone like Nunes, really be able to control the range, and she was going to eat a lot of damage. So we saw that eventually the first round, man, she was getting clobbered horribly. I mean, had that been Ronda, she would have probably tried to start snapping off an arm immediately. I don't think she would have been as patient. Not only that, but the comeback was amazing, and that there was something was a little scary around the second round where Cat had the opportunity for a few seconds for an armbar, and she didn't seem to go for it. There was a little something on her face like, no, I'm going to make you suffer. She was in side control, had the opposite arm cupped like this, and she decided to just go for short elbows and continue with the strikes. And she could have just, brought her leg over and she might have sacrificed position partially, but she would have actually been in a better position.
Yeah, but she'd been underneath Nunes earlier eating punches, and I don't think
Right.
That, to me, that was the hesitation more than, it's not like the tiger that was eating the kid in the New Delhi Zoo this week. I mean, it's not like she was in with somebody that was helpless. I mean, she was like in with a dangerous opponent, and I think she considered it, and she looked away. I don't think she was toying with her prey there, but really good performance from Cat Zingano. I think she's a live threat to give Ronda Rousey a very stiff challenge, but I don't see her beating her with the slow start and the poor range game. But anything can happen in MMA. But let's get on to the real controversial shit show. Yoel Romero and Tim Kennedy. This is a legendary fight. This is a fight that if enough people saw it, people are going to be talking about this shit for years, because you rarely see a fight where one fighter this was a 2 TKO fight. Yoel Romero got knocked out at the end of the second round. Wasn't able to answer the bell. His corner very cleverly kept him on the stool for an extra, minute and a half. Big John McCarthy fucked up, let it continue. And then Yoel Romero comes out and knocks out Tim Kennedy 58 seconds into the third round. I mean, what do you make of this? How did you score? Was that a Kennedy win for you, or did Romero?
Yes and no, and I'll tell you why. There was a bit of beautiful fuckery in there, in the fact that, first off, the athletic commission employee that was actually pushing the ATT guys out. I mean, you see there's actually a moment where he's pushing the guy, one of the quartermen, in the chest, telling him, you get out now. And then he's the same guy who's pointing at Romero going, wait, he's got too much Vaseline on his face. He's got water on his back. You got to come in here and wipe him off and all that. And then on top of that, So he's still on the stool. All this happens, and I don't think it was really for like a minute and a half. I mean, it was for like maybe, I don't know, 20,
Yeah, I
30
haven't
seconds.
watched it with the stopwatch yet, so I don't know. But
No, I know. I mean, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that some people were thinking like, oh, he was there for 3 minutes. Like, come on, it was a while, and it very well could have made the difference. But even with that, I mean, he comes back, and another thing about Romero, people don't really. Some of his opponents don't seem to gauge his distance very well. I mean, that shot when he caught Kennedy for that comeback, and he just started that rally. I mean, he hit him with 2 or 3 shots where Kennedy just thought he could move his head about, and he made him suffer horribly. So I don't know, that thing with the stool, man. I mean, if it was blatant, it was done pretty masterfully, because there is a bit of wiggle room for you to say, well, yeah, but look, they were telling us to come back in. You know, they were telling us to leave him alone, come back in. It's the state athletic commission's fault. Whether it's deliberate or not, I can't say, but they do have a bit of a case in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? Does this deserve a rematch? I mean, or does Yoel Romero move onward and upward and into title contention and leave Tim Kennedy in the dust, or does Tim Kennedy deserve an immediate rematch?
I'm not really sure, because of the fact that the middleweight division, as it stands now, I mean, the way it's been since Anderson Silva's second loss to Weidman, it kind of blew itself not exactly wide open, but a lot of exciting moves have happened. Maybe they'll do something along the lines of a Romero Musashi fight. Maybe they'll strike while the iron's hot and put him up there against Weidman. I'm not sure. I really don't know what.
I mean, he could fight Jacare Souza, you know, like. You know, I mean, Jacare's out there. It's kind of it would be kind of cruel to make Jacare fight Yoel Romero to have to get a title shot. But either way, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to let the dust settle and think about this a little more. This was such a great fight, and so much excitement, and so much to talk about. I just don't. There's no way a rematch matches this. But Tim Kennedy, it seems like he's just my buddies that I was watching this with were comparing him to Michael Bisping, and Bisping's unfortunate streak of losing to guys who are clearly roided out of their minds. Like Kennedy definitely took a hard one here, and you know, the gods did not smile on him tonight. Whether or not that's going to, we'll just have to see the post-fight scrum and the post-fight press conference and see what Dana White has to say and see what, you know, the MMA gods say. But anyway, this was your entertainment dollar right here. This is all the violence and all the controversy you could possibly ask for in an MMA fight. So we're only 2 fights into the main card, and it's already been, you know, 2 just absolute humdingers. And then Conor McGregor comes out and absolutely steals the show. I mean, the bullshit he was pulling at the glove touch alone was, I was like sort of meh on the Conor McGregor hype, but I am fully on the Conor McGregor hype train. He looked great against Dustin Poirier, but were the punches illegal? Was that the difference? Punches to the back of the head? Was this a bullshit win? Minute 46 TKO over Dustin Poirier, or was the fight over anyway?
You know, when we have a card like this that was that good, I mean, I'm going to watch it again as soon as we're done with this. But the replays that I only saw one shot that was to the back of the head, and that was, I think, the elbow that sort of clipped him when he was retracting his arm. The first shot was the hook. It was a left hook that caught him right pretty much above and behind the ear, but it wasn't the back of the head.
And even if it happened, it's legal, and if you're standing up and the guy ducks, back of the head's back of the Schmidt. I mean, you know, the back of the head rule only counts when somebody's down on the ground and you're deliberately targeting the back of the head. So, you know, that's...
It didn't seem deliberate. It didn't seem deliberate by any stretch to me, so I really don't. And again, I only saw that one shot. He was already on his way out. I don't see how that would have made much of a difference, personally.
Yeah, but I mean, what a hell of a performance by Conor McGregor. And what do they do with him from here? Do they slip something in Chad Mendez's food and give him the immediate title shot like he's saying, or what do we do?
No, I don't think he's got next. I think he's definitely got to face somebody who's in the maybe top 5 at this point. And they're most likely going to have to give him someone who's got a strong wrestling base, because that's like going to be the biggest knock at this point. Like, yeah, but he hasn't fought a wrestler. Like, just to really test him and get him, which he's going to have to do anyway because a lot of the guys
Let's let him
that are
do
in the
that
top
after
10.
he loses his title shot. Like, let's not fuck up the Conor McGregor title shot by booking him
Well,
against
I don't know, man. I don't know if they're really going to be able to justify giving a title shot just yet. I think
They
he's
can
really
do whatever
one
they
win away.
want. Justify
Well,
nothing. I mean, they can book
yeah,
Chris Carriasso to headline a pay-per-view that was supposed to be headlined by
yeah,
John Jones. I mean, you know, it's
yeah.
Damon's world. It's Joe Silva's world. We just pay for it. Like, they don't need to book him against a wrestler. I mean, what? I mean, even I wouldn't even want to see him against Frankie Edgar. I want to see him. Let's get him in a title shot. See how he does against Jose Aldo. I think Aldo's going to beat Chad Mendes, and if Mendes beats Aldo, then by all means, let's see how McGregor does against a wrestler for the title. I just think it's foolishness to fuck around with. Let's test him. You know, I mean, he was ranked number 9 going into this. Dustin Poirier was ranked number 5.
Wow. Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
I
he
don't
was.
know.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's the money fight. You got to follow the money. This is a money business. It's a spectacle first, sports second, but time will tell. Time will tell. And that brings us to Donald Cerrone defeating Eddie Alvarez, unanimous decision. What a fucking fight, man. I mean,
Yeah, that was. I feel really sad. I mean, I've been saying for a while I'm the biggest bloody elbow. I'm the unofficial Eddie Alvarez cheerleader, man, and I felt sad in that third round where he still doesn't check leg kicks. He still eats these shots that he doesn't block to the body, and he just still eats punches with his face. And you know, it's only going to take you so far. And you get a guy who's calculated like Cerrone, a guy who, Eddie, you could say he won the first round, but man, I mean,
he won it
that,
handily.
Yes.
But the thing is,
after that, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, after that, he had nothing. But the thing is, I think it was when Eddie got him in the collar tie and was going full on Don Fried Takayama on him, and Cerrone was not answering. It was like 12 unanswered punches, uppercut, hook, uppercut, hook, uppercut, hook, and it didn't seem to hurt him. I knew at that point that Alvarez was fucked. Like if you get to fire away at somebody like that and you don't even wobble him a little bit, you know, you just like, you know, what else are you gonna do? You know,
I didn't think he was going to gas out or anything after that sequence, but I pretty much figured, the judges probably won't give you that much credit because you're not really doing that much, and it's not really his fault, but that was his only significant offense.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think he won the first round. He clearly won one round on all three judges' cards. I just felt like he didn't have the power to beat Cerrone, which really astonished me because we've seen Alvarez in there with some real hosses, Michael Chandler, Kawajiri, you know, Kikuno, various people. I mean, I felt like he had legit power, and we've seen Cerrone get crumpled, you know, by Diaz. Melvin Guillard stumbled him. Anthony Pettis destroyed him. I was really, once I saw that Alvarez could open fire like that and not hurt him, I was amazed. And I just knew at that point that it was Cerrone's fight because he's a slow starter, you know, and he's got the kicking advantage and the knee advantage. Alvarez is just a boxer, and so, you know, like you say, I mean, he's just stylistically limited, and I don't know. At this point, I'm thinking, should Alvarez move down to featherweight?
I was wondering that around the second round as well. I was wondering if it was possible that, you know, for him to cut an extra 10, because I really think he'd have some more dynamic matchups with guys that would probably, you know, not so much stylistically, but in terms of frame and size, maybe it would be more adequate for him. But I mean, you know, that whole thing, fighting against Cerrone, not being able to get the fight to the ground, you know, that clinch sequence with the punches, you know, he did seem like he wasn't exactly, because most of his power is when he sits on his punches, and he wasn't exactly doing that when he was hammering them from the clinch. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's time for us to really make that call yet, unless we maybe see how well he does in one other fight, and then we can probably see if maybe he should cut down to 145.
Yep. Time will tell. But then that brings us to the anticlimax. Demetrius Johnson demolished Chris Carriazo, got the second round Kimura submission. But let's talk about what could have been. Can you imagine how epic this fucking card would have been if it had been headlined by John Jones versus Daniel Cormier? I mean, oh my fucking God.
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that it could have been really sensational, just given the talent that these two guys have. But you know, at the same time, it's kind of like Rich Franklin was saying earlier this week. we like seeing that sort of animosity between fighters, but a lot of these guys, they get so emotionally charged that, technique and actual concern for doing things the right way goes out the window, and we end up with this sloppy shit fest. And then we start complaining, yeah, those guys are great, but that fight they put on. So we really, it's hard to tell, to put on your psychic hat and try to see, well, in an alternate universe, what would have been. But, I guess we're just going to have to wait. And I would have really preferred that it happened now instead of having to sit and wait for this whole feud to kind of, fizzle. But, what can you do? Thank Overeem, I suppose.
Yeah, the gods hate us. That's the moral of the story in 2014.
They can't hate us that bad. We got a really good card aside from that thing getting canceled. So, I mean, in a way, they give, but they take away.
It's true. And Mighty Mouse, you can't complain about his performance. I mean, it went into the second round. That's about the worst thing you can say, is he let Carriazo go in the second round. But he beat him up badly with some sweet combinations of punches and knees in the end of the first round, and then just demolished him in the second round. So he did what he had to do. I don't think Carriazo deserved a title shot, but, it is what it is. Overall, how do you rate the card? Where do you rate it among cards this year?
This could very well be a contender for card of the year so far. I'd probably put it in the top 5 of UFC cards because of all the crazy action that delivered, and the fact that there were, as all pay-per-view cards should be, you should have cards that have very, very serious divisional implications and be able to move things along the top rank. I mean, you have your fight nights for your prospects and sort of contenders moving up and down the ranks. That sort of moves all the other stuff. Your Fight Pass and all that, what have you, Fox Sports 1. But pay-per-views really should be top 10 guys that are closer to a title shot, guys that are really delivering on the action and getting ahead. And, Carriazo, he did what he could, but it was what it was. And this whole card, top to bottom, again, even though it did have some lulls, it did have some crazy fun action. The main card, really good fights, really good performances, and even the fights that weren't as exciting, a lot of people might not think that the Mighty Mouse fight was that great, but he put on as great a performance as he could, and he's always fun to watch for me because he's immensely talented. So I'd definitely give this a really high rating on it.
Yeah, I got to give it a high rating. When you look at this card, you've got at least the top 6, maybe the top 7 fights all had serious title meaning implications. Dominick Cruz reestablished himself as a contender at the top of the bantamweight division. George Masvidal possibly broke through to the top tier of the lightweight division. Kat Zingano established herself at the top of the women's bantamweight division. Definitely has a title shot coming her way. Yoel Romero and Tim Kennedy are right up there at the top of the middleweight division. If they decide to let Yoel Romero go forward, I mean, he's close to title shot. Conor McGregor clearly nearly at the top of the featherweight division. I mean, people still say he deserves a wrestler, but to me, this was a breakout performance. Very impressive demolition of a very tough Dustin Poirier. Donald Cerrone clearly right there at the top of the lightweight division. I mean, this was $55 worth of action, hands down, no problem, no question. This was a great product, great night of fights. Any final words, Victor?
No, not really, man. I'm just glad I was able to stay home and do that, and be able to enjoy a great night of fights because this was really good. Main event replacement notwithstanding, this was a great card. Catch the replay if you didn't see it. It's really worth your time and money.
Absolutely. And where can people follow you on Twitter, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Vic M. Rodriguez, and now that I've got pretty much everything together after this move, I'm going to be pretty much lurking along in Bloody Elbow in the moderator section. So.
All right, and we'll see you back on the vivisections and various shows like that. So thanks very much for spotting us. Dallas Winston had an injury. Connor Rubish had some excuse. Zane Simon's in-laws were in. So this is Kid Nate. You can follow me at Kid Nate. Give us a like. That's the thumbs up at the bottom of the YouTube video. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Read us on BloodyElbow.com. I think I'll be back tomorrow with the bathrobe review because there's plenty more to talk about. And Eugene will be back. Eugene S. Robinson will be back with Knuckle Up on Monday. We've got UFC Fight Night Nelson versus Story next week, so we'll have all the usual fixings, care, don't care, vivisections, et cetera, et cetera. Adios, MMA fans. MMA aficionados. Sorry. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Victor.